Hi everyone, this is Rob Darrow from iNACOL, welcoming you to our special Teacher Talk webinar today about English language learners and blended learning. Just so you know, this webinar is being recorded and you'll be able to see it on the link that was sent to you for this webinar. In addition, I will email out afterwards the link as well with a little evaluation of this. So to get started here, if I could ask each one of you in the Tools menu, just to the right of where your name is showing, click on the little star there or the happy face and show us where in the United States that you live, or maybe you live outside the United States. So right next to, there's a little strip along the side next to where your names are, and you should see a little pointer and then a star. And then in that star you get a smiley face or an X. That's good. I see somebody put an X there. Great. All right, there we go. So choose whichever one you'd like and show us where you're at. And then just know if you unclick it, then it unclicks to show us where you are. So we've got people here from Colorado, Texas. I'm in California. Is that it? So you got the rest of you must all be in the same place then, huh? Okay, great. Well, welcome to everybody. Glad you're here. I'd like to move forward and introduce you to our speakers today who are from the Hope Online Learning Academy. And their presentation today is English Language Learners, a community-driven blended learning approach to K-12 education. So with that, I'd like to introduce you to Janet Sullivan, who will introduce herself and share a little bit about herself and her co-presenters. Take it away, Janet.
Thank you, Rob. Actually, we're going to have Sherida Peterson, who is our Vice President of Academics, that will start us off. She will tell you a little bit about Hope, and then I will take over.
Thanks so much, Janet, and hello to everyone. Again, my name is Sherida Peterson, and I do have the great pleasure to serve as the Vice President for Academic Achievement at Hope Online Learning Academy Co-op. We were established in 2005 with a vision to provide an online option to under-challenged and underserved Colorado youth within a community-supported setting. Since then, Hope has evolved from an online program educating 1,500 students at 28 sites to a multi-district blended learning model which serves currently over 2,800 K-12 students in over 48 learning centers. We have gone through substantial and rapid changes in the last 7 years, brought on mostly by our CEO, Heather O'Mara, to strengthen our model. Some of the changes include recruitment of a highly experienced leadership team and academic staff, development of meaningful community partnerships, embedded research-based professional development for all Hope educators and our partners, and charter authorization through one of the largest and most respected Colorado school districts, Douglas County. In addition, we have reinforced our certified teaching staff over the past couple of years with highly qualified math and science educators and English as a second language endorsed educators. Our improvement plan addresses curriculum alignment, professional development, and project-based learning for these content areas. Further, because our population has been changing, we have been forging forward to create programs for our second language learners. Today we would like to share how we are providing specialized programming for our second language learners in our blended learning model. So I will turn it over to Janet, Dr. Janet Sullivan, who is our Director of Student Achievement.
Thank you, Sherida. Before I begin, I would like to introduce three of the most amazing people in the whole entire world. And I have the privilege of working with them. With me here today are Robin Rice, who's going to be doing the presentation with me. We also have Kristen Poole and Candace Steele, who will be at your service. They'll be manning the chat room. So if you have questions, please type it in the chat box, and they will respond, or they will hand it over to us to respond. All three of these lovely ladies are our ELL specialists here at Hope. So they're going to be standing by because they can certainly answer a lot more questions than I can. So we are also going to attempt to do some interactive activities with you this session, so they're going to be supporting our efforts. I want to talk a little bit about the changing landscape, because I know that you're all aware that the number of second language learners enrolling in the schools across the United States has increased exponentially. In Colorado, the number of ELLs in public schools has increased over the past decade from approximately 6% to over 14% today. Recent enrollment data also indicates that ELs are disproportionately placed in charter school systems. The good news is that if we're prepared, charters can have the flexibility to implement innovative structures that can better serve this population of students. We just have to be really thoughtful. However, each of our schools need to really evaluate our capacity to serve this population as required by the federal and state accountability indicators. But more importantly, we really need to make sure that we're prepared to meet the unique needs of these students so that we're providing the best possible life outcomes. So we want to take a poll. You'll notice that under the participants toolbar that you'll see your name, and then there's 4 boxes. On the right-hand side, you will see a little box with a check in it. Could you please check yes, which would be your green, or red for your X for your no, to indicate if you are a teacher of a student who is ELL, or if you're an administrator with a second language student in your school. If you could please do that now. Okay, so it looks like we've got 4 to 3. So 4 of you are currently working with students who are second language learners, and 3 of you not, but hopefully this will be informative in case you go that route, or to be able to share this information with others. Okay, so again, currently there are now 80% of our native Spanish speakers that are ELL students in our charters and schools of choice, our native Spanish speakers, and then 40% of our Latino students are also ELLs, although that varies very vastly between states. So all schools are now being held accountable for closing the gap, as those of you in schools well know. However, there's a number of variables that really impact student preparedness to learn in the grade level curriculum. Much research has been done in this area, especially with regards to the congruency of the background of the teacher to the student, and that's with respect to the ethnicity, economics, religion, etc. So congruency just means how alike you are with those kinds of areas that your student comes from. Are you the same? Are you quite different, etc. So research has really shown that lack of congruency really affects how teachers feel about their students. Language differences, even if a student doesn't speak English, can affect how teachers perceive and provide for their students. Students with lower linguistic abilities often they're saddled with lower expectations. But for ELL students, there's also language differences that include hurdles around a shared understanding of the meaning of different words. We know that for all students, vocabulary significantly impacts learning. Even using academic English affects us all. According to research by Betty Hart and Todd Risley, children from privileged or higher SES families have heard at least 30 million words or more by the time that they're the age of 3, more words than children who are from lower SES families by the age of 3. And further research that was done indicated that actually by the time that they're 3 years old, how students are performing at that particular age predicts how they will do in their grade level achievement, their school grade achievement, which is a little scary, because when you have kids that walk in the door and they're already challenged with vocabulary, you really have a lot to stop to really get on the ball and decrease those gaps immediately. The language gap also impacts students' listening comprehension and their understanding of new information. So also they have an inability to gain vocabulary information the further the greater the gap gets. They also lose interest, motivation, and self-confidence. So that then is even affected more when our teachers are underprepared, because they may not have the knowledge or the pedagogy to teach these students. So it's an area that we really have to embrace and really put a lot of thought into. While empirical studies on programming for ELs have had kind of mixed reviews about which is the most effective language for programming, all of the studies agree that students need instruction to support their language acquisition as well as their vocabulary associated with the different content areas. So we all have to really do our part in making sure that we're providing that for our students. So Johns Hopkins researchers found that the most effective model also included integration of language literacy and academic content instruction, cooperative learning, professional development, parent and family support teams, and then monitoring the implementation of these outcomes. So that's keep that in your head, because that's somewhat what we're going to talk about when we talk about programming for students who are English language learners. Further, the National Literacy Panel on Language Minority Children and Youth concluded that bilingual education has an edge over English-only methods, and that actually is emerging research that more and more people are finding and supporting. However, many schools, especially non-traditional brick-and-mortar schools, they don't have the capacity to provide full bilingual programming or meet the needs of students who are further in their English learning. Therefore, it's really essential that an online or blended learning learning environment, we have to determine how we can best meet the needs of this population. So, again, we must do our due diligence to this group of kiddos. So Hope's model, as Sherida indicated, has been in place and was established essentially to provide an online option for under-challenged and underserved youth in Colorado within a community-supported setting. So it required that students come in on a daily basis to these center programs and do online work. However, over the past 5 years, our programming has really morphed, and students are now provided with instructional programming through a blended learning model that I'll talk a little bit more about. These learning centers are staffed full-time with directors and mentors who represent their community. So directors must have a bachelor's degree with experience in community programming, such as human services or related fields. We have one that's a nurse. We've had some that have been grant writers. A lot of them are well connected with the community so that they can really support families in a number of different ways. Mentors must have at least an associate's degree or have passed the highly qualified paraprofessional training, although currently 40% of our mentors are licensed teachers or are pursuing an alternative licensure program through our chartering district. So this is a really nice arrangement that we have with them. Hope provides the general education teacher, the special education teacher, our Title I learning specialist, and our ELL specialist, and administrators that kind of monitor that the centers are engaging in the activities and are accountable for them. We found that the smaller learning environments have allowed us to really focus on building relationships with students and their families in ways that we really have not been able to do in the past. This is such an essential component of an effective program, so I can't underscore how important this really is. I'll talk a little bit more about the structure later about community centers, as they're foundational, and especially for our students who are English language learners. Hope also has a balanced assessment system to ensure that students are moving forward, but this also serves as a way for our teachers to be diagnosticians on the fly. It allows them to make instructional decisions when creating program for students because, as I'll talk about a little bit further, our students are fairly mobile, and so we have to be able to find out exactly where they're at and program for them and get them started immediately as they enter the door. So there seems the concept of blended learning has a different meaning for different people, and truthfully it is just emerging. So we use the Staker and Horn definition since we believe this clearly references our model, and I'm not going to read the entire definition, but it requires some portion of online delivery and content that students have some control over, whether it's the time, the place, the pace that they go at, etc. And that the instruction is provided at least part-time in a supervised brick-and-mortar location away from their home. So again, all of our students attend a full day at these learning centers. Okay. So Hope's blended learning environment has morphed over the years. We serve a highly impacted, highly mobile population. Although truthfully, the mobility numbers are now starting to come down because we've have been able to network our community centers so that they're talking more to each other. If students do have to move for economic reasons, the good news is that they can move into another learning center located in a different neighborhood and pick right up where they were. So the online programming and our online assessment system allows us immediately to get that information over to the new director and mentor and hope teacher if a different teacher is assigned to that particular center. So because they are highly impacted and highly mobile, we have to be quickly responsive to the needs in order to get them started in school. We have also found that we're unable to address the learning gaps that students come in with without a strong individualized focus that allows us to be really flexible in the way that we tailor our curriculum resources that we have. So students attend the daily online curriculum, and they also get face-to-face instruction in all core of the content areas. We have a menu of the curricular resources that are online for students to access depending on their level of learning. So most of our students are in our K-12 program for the core content, but we have some students that may take electives in other programs. We have some students that may need some interventions that access both reading and math interventions on a different system. We may have some language programs that you'll see in a little bit that support the learning of these students. So all of our students work at their own pace, and we require mastery as they continue on through the program. So if students work fast, they get to go fast, and they can actually go into later grade level work if in fact we see that they're working adequately. And then also the work can be done at home. If students need to catch up, they can go to the library, etc. So we do have that ability. Okay. So going back to the Learning Center, again, I can't underscore how important this has been to have this partnership. And it is a partnership because the Learning Center provides the director and the mentors, and they enroll the students because these students are from their community. They understand the families and their needs. It also allows us to be able to provide a much smaller learning environment. So our centers may range anywhere from 25 students on up to as large as, I think we've got one learning center that has up to about 300 students. But you see the whole gamut in there. Because it is staffed with directors and mentors from the community, there is that congruency typically between the staff at the center and the families, and so they're able to engage them because they speak the same language. They may understand the family's needs, and they're able to hook them up with outside agencies. They may provide other resources such as clothing banks, etc., within the community centers. There's a collaboration then with our HOPE teachers. Our student services coordinators, we have nursing support. Every center has an enrollment coordinator. Our ELL specialists are assigned, and Robin's going to talk about how it happens, and we have tech support. This means that our teachers actually have a very different role in the centers, though, because we have some variation in the amount of knowledge that our mentors may have. Our teachers serve, they collaborate constantly with the directors and mentors. They may actually do some modeling of lessons. They may pull students out for direct instruction with small groups. They go over data walks with everybody at the center to ensure that everybody's clear about what students need. They are very active in our RTI process within that, and then they also monitor students' work within the systems that we have. Okay, so our curriculum, we know that although we have a number of the online and offline resources, we have found, and I have found in other districts that I've worked, that none of them really completely align with the Common Core, especially in relationship to the cognitive complexity and the depth of knowledge that's evident in the Common Core standards, which I personally love. But it's meant a lot of work for us. So since our students come to us with a lot of gaps, we really had to go in and identify from the Common Core the most foundational skills to focus on that really we had to give the greatest attention to for our students to be able to learn. So we had to look at the building blocks. We did extensive professional development with our teachers to unpack the standards, and we completed a review of the current research on learning and pedagogy, and from that we created the set of learning targets. So it was very beneficial to do the professional development with the teachers because I think really getting a better understanding of what were key concepts and what skills were associated ended up being a really, it helped to scaffold the learning for our teachers as well as the mentors. So from our learning targets, we've developed a set of what's called extended look-fors. So we've reviewed research around learning progressions from different countries, as well as the United States, although the United States has just started that with the Common Core, to develop this set of look-fors that help mentors and teachers break down the larger concepts students should be learning. This provides a framework for the sequence of offline and online instruction as well as our formative measures to determine if students are progressing towards a learning target. So mentors can take this and they can, every time students master a skill, they can check it off, and so they can set goals with students from this. They can have conversations with families about this. They know that this is kind of the step-by-step sequence for the individualized programming for students, or at least for groups of students that may have gaps in these particular areas. As part of our balanced assessment system, students are also given monthly probes alternating language arts and math concepts as well. So there is a sample of the learning targets. So Rob is going to make those available to you, and this is just a sample that we are giving you, and we can provide more. You can email us at the end of the presentation and ask for more if you'd like. From the look-fors, we also have a set of, we have kind of the sequence of lesson plans that you see that are taught offline. You can see that we extensively highlight vocabulary multiple times because we know this is an essential learning outcome for all of our students. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but you'll be able to see the areas that we go. And we actually do this step by step. So what they must say, because it's really important that they scaffold the learning for students. So it's all about I do, we do, and then you do. Okay. Finally, we also have a number of performance assessments throughout the year that provide students with direct application for their learning. So this is a rubric we use for our persuasive argument competition. Every student who is in grade 6 through 12 must write a persuasive argument that's based on research and opinion. So a core set of lessons are scaffolded to help students understand how to create a thesis statement and how to build a sound quality argument. We also have a science symposium today. We just hosted our math exposition where students actually followed math lesson plans and created different types of art that was based on things like fractions, ratio and proportion, etc. So we also have an event that's called the Hero Narrative Writing. So kids actually are able to demonstrate their learning in real fundamental ways that are actual ways that they can demonstrate their learning. This allows us also to continually track and monitor student progress in these particular areas. Okay. While our enrollment has remained fairly stable, the demographics of our student body has changed. So the percent of minority has stayed somewhat consistent, but we've seen an increase in the number of students who are free and reduced lunch. And the last figure you see is actually based on the number of centers who provide free and reduced lunch, because not all of them do. The number looks a lot lower when we include all of those centers in there, but for those that do serve it, this is the percent of students that we have. But we've seen an incredible increase in our second language learners. So as you can see, that they've almost doubled since, or they've over doubled actually, since 2008-9. So it's an area that we've really had to put a lot of thought into. We've also seen a change in the percent of students at different language proficiency levels. So if you're not familiar with it, LEP is a limited English proficient, NEP is non-English proficient, and FEP is fluent English. So students who are non-English proficient have increased over the years. So you can see that we serve 29%, almost 30% of our students are non-English proficient. And those are primarily at the elementary level and specifically in grades K through 2. So a lot of our kinders come in and they are non-English proficient. While Spanish is the most reported second language, we also have 42 other languages that are spoken in our centers. So we have to be fairly well aware of and monitoring students' language levels. As a result of it, we found that we have to be very active in identifying our English language learners, especially since a number do not report having a second language on their home language survey. So we do a lot around collecting a body of evidence. I'm not going to say a whole lot about it, but on the left-hand side, our state requires that we do a language survey and placement test. Parents have to be notified, and then we build a language plan that, after looking at a body of evidence and determining where students' starting points are. So our staff here at Hope also do above and beyond that. So we have early reading, an early reading screen of the DIBELS that we use 3 times across the year, as well as progress monitoring probes from that, and then our interim benchmark in reading math that they use, to determine and verify that students are actually language learners. They also use these WIDA can-dos, and Robin's going to explain those a lot more, and then all 3 of our specialists have been trained in the WIDA formative assessments. This isn't the statewide assessment. These are very specific formative assessments that they do to determine where students are performing at. So our ELL program actually has morphed across the years. So 2 years ago, we started piloting a program with one specialist to help us investigate what were the best methods for our students. Today, we have a number of endorsed teachers and 3 specialists who provide direct instruction to students and mentors, as well as providing consultation for our centers with a few students, because we find that we have a number of schools, 3 of them who are almost 100% second language learners, so we call them our Tier 1 schools. We have Tier 2 schools that are about 50% second language learners, and then we have the majority of our centers which actually have a few second language learners. So as a result of that, we established this tiered professional development. I shouldn't say we, they did it. Established tiered professional development that Robin's going to go in depth around. They also took a look at what was the most efficacious online and offline programming based on where students' language proficiency was. And then they help us to monitor and monitor in the centers if students are actually making progress in their language acquisition as well as their content knowledge. So as a result of this, we think we are starting to see some great things in terms of our achievement. Hope has been on priority, and we came off of turnaround. We're now on priority because our students are making some gains. This is our language arts, and this is the cohort of students that we've kept over the last 4 years, and you can see that the percent of students that are unsatisfactory continue to go down. The percent of students who are increasing in proficiency goes up, but it's compared to the state average, of course, we're not where we need to be, but we feel like given the percent of students that we have, we are on our way, and we are dedicated to making sure that our students achieve. So we're putting a lot of structures into place and a lot of thought around this. The other thing that we know is for the last 2 years that the majority of our grade levels of students in language arts are outperforming the state average. So we believe this has much to do with our beginning work in this area and our persistence of our ELL specialists. So I would like to now introduce Robin Wright, one of our ELL specialists, who will walk you through her life as she knows it now. So I want to welcome Robin because she has a lot of expertise from this group of ELL specialists that she is going to be sharing.
Thanks, Janet. Hi, I'm Robin Wright. I'm one of 3 ELL specialists at Hope. So today I'm going to go through sort of what my role is, as well as briefly talk about our ELL program as a whole and how it's evolved over the last few years. As an ELL specialist, my role includes developing and implementing professional development for all of our teaching staff, assessing ELL students at the various learning centers throughout the year, developing curriculum supports for both online and offline instruction, as well as collaboration with staff and direct services to students. Today, like I said, I'm going to focus on our program as a whole. As Janet stated earlier, our number of second language learners has drastically increased in recent years. When we began looking to see where students struggled the most, we found that both our English and non-English speaking students were lacking in the area of vocabulary. We decided to create an online site for teachers and mentors to access. Whoops. What happened? technical difficulties. Where's our slide?
We lost the slides.
Rob, do you see the slides on your screen?
Yeah, I see the can-do slide. If you want
okay,
to,
I just can't see the slides on mine.
if you just keep going and you can look at the slide deck that you originally created and just ask me to advance them.
Okay, I'm good, thank you. All right, so going back, as I said, we found that vocabulary was the area where most of our students, both ELL and English speakers, were struggling. So we decided to create a vocabulary program. We created it on a Google site, so our HOPE staff as well as all of our Learning Center staff have access to WOW words, which are words of the week. They are based on high-frequency sight words for kindergarten through second grade. We also broke them up by grade span, so 3 through 5, 6 through 8, and 9 through 12th grade have separate word lists. They're comprised of high-frequency academic vocabulary, which we feel are necessary for students to access grade-level content in all subject areas. For 9 through 12th, they have the WOW words. They also have ACT prep words that we incorporate into that. We provide visuals for each of the words, and we also use an online program that allows students to interact with the words through games and quizzes. Strategies are also provided to teachers to ensure that the students get to meet the words, so they're able to see the meaning of the word if they've never been exposed to the word before. They get to work with the words in different contexts, and our overall goal is to have students make these words their own. So we want them to own the word. We don't want to just teach words in isolation. Our goal is to really have these vocabulary words become part of their working vocabulary. We also felt it was imperative to really explore the foundations of language development. So the two areas we focus on are the differences between language acquisition and language learning, and the expected outcomes for ELL students in each language domain at their given proficiency level. Language acquisition is the process of learning how to pronounce words in a language, whereas language learning is the process of internalizing and comprehending the language through speaking, listening, reading, and writing. Language learning is not possible without first language support, which is also a major component of our ELL program. The WIDA can-do descriptors that you can see on your screen are examples of what ELLs may be able to do in each language domain. Those domains are speaking, listening, reading, and writing. And those are examples of what they should be able to do at their given proficiency level. We use these as a basis for our professional development with Learning Center staff as a way to keep both language and content at the forefront of planning and instruction. Because we have so many ELL students at various locations, within our organization, our professional development is critical in ensuring teachers and staff have the knowledge and resources they need to support students effectively. We have a tiered model of professional development, like Janet stated. Our general sessions occur before school starts and continue throughout the year, and our main focus in these is to provide a framework of understanding around the needs and differences of second language learners. We also provide reference materials for staff to use through the year, and we have a couple of examples coming up that I'll go through in a minute. Oftentimes, critical instructional time is lost at the beginning of the year because teachers don't know where to start with their ELL students. ELL students develop listening, speaking, reading, and writing skills at different rates, making it incredibly difficult for educators to know where to start. We don't want this time to be lost, so we've really tried to make it easier for our teachers to know the students' language needs and what curriculum they should be using as soon as possible. This means providing strategies to prepare teachers and staff for their students' arrival and curriculum programming tailored to fit students' language abilities from day one. So our goal with these general professional developments is, yes, to make sure that the staff have an understanding of language development, but also a plan for when the students come into the classroom. We also focus a lot on assessment and how the data can be used to ensure teachers are continually using authentic assessment tasks as well as diagnostic and formative assessments to measure and track progress. We use benchmark assessments in reading and math, DIBELS, learning target probes, WOW quizzes, and language assessments such as the WIDA model that Janet spoke about earlier. So this is a sample of a handout we created at the beginning of this school year to assist teachers and mentors before and at the beginning of school. As I said before, knowing where to start is the first step to make sure that teachers are prepared. If you notice, first language supports are introduced the very first day of school. So if possible, having a buddy in class that speaks the same language, labeling things throughout the classroom in the students' native languages. These are all valuable tools to make students feel comfortable and successful the first few days of school. So it looks like Rob went ahead and sent out a copy of that first example. If you're looking through that and you do have questions, feel free to enter those in the chat box, and we have some people that can respond to you. Okay, so our next slide does talk about another handout that we also provided. This outlines appropriate online curriculum for our second language learners. As you can see, first language supports, such as a student-made dictionary and other translation tools, are emphasized. The online curriculum alone will not benefit students unless support is provided. Although we definitely do rely on our online curriculum a lot, like we said, it's never going to be enough unless there is interactive scaffolding provided by the instructional team that serves the students. And online curriculum is not a one-size-fits-all. So we're lucky to have a menu of online curricula that we're able to choose from, and we're able to provide a tailored program for each student based on their needs. So we wanted to go ahead and do an interactive poll right now. If you have strategies that you're currently using to provide first language support in an online environment, if you want to go ahead and share those in the chat box, that'd be great. That way we can get some other input from other people that may be helping students out online as well. So I'll keep going. If we see anything, we'll be sure to share that. Okay, going back to our professional development tiered model. First tier is our general professional development. Our second tier is for our highly impacted learning centers. This includes monthly intensive trainings around data-driven instruction for ELL students. These professional development sessions are created and implemented by the 3 ELL specialists at Hope. In addition to, like I said, we do this on a monthly basis. We began at the beginning of the year with an introduction to the WIDA ELD standards. So our focus throughout this year has been on academic language. The ELD standards address the language necessary for ELL students to be successful in language arts, math, science, social studies, as well as social and instructional language. We also use the can-do descriptors to encourage immediate implementation of the work we do in these trainings. We do this by using actual classroom data that the mentors and teachers can then construct curriculum plans for their students. We also integrate the WOW words and our WOW instruction, and we also use the can-do descriptors within that, within that to ensure that scaffolding takes place throughout every lesson. Our goal is that vocabulary is taught at the beginning of every content lesson, and then our way of ensuring this happens is to make sure those can-do descriptors are at the forefront of our mentors' minds, and they're planning with those at all times. It's important to note that our vocabulary objectives are not to teach words in isolation, but to move beyond the word level and begin to make connections between words in different ways. So moving beyond just the meaning of a word, we don't want people looking stuff up in dictionaries. Dictionaries are a valuable tool, yes, but they should not be the first point of contact for a student learning a new vocabulary word. So moving beyond just the meaning of a word to how it's used in different contexts. This really allows students to build their own connections in language. Each session that we do also provides participants the opportunity to practice integrating these language supports into their curriculum plans, and participants leave with a plan designed to increase support for their ELL students. So we have the opportunity to create, and then they also implement right after. They are then expected to, like I said, apply their knowledge in their own classrooms. Bilingual support is offered by Learning Center staff as well as our teachers. So we're really lucky to have learning centers that partner so closely with their communities. Most of the staff actually live in the community. They speak the first language of most of the students and parents within the school. This really allows for first language support in offline instruction as well as online instruction through the use of technologies such as translators and other components of our curriculum. So even though ELL specialists don't necessarily speak every language of the students that they serve, technology has really allowed us to branch out and connect with students and provide them first language support. All right, progress monitoring is also really important, and it's something that we do hold people accountable for. This next slide is an example of a checklist that we use within our embedded professional developments. We also use this for classroom observations as well as self-evaluations. A lot of mentors and teachers find this document useful for goal setting. This is a sample, like I said, of something that we would use in one of our embedded PDs with our mentors. If you notice the title, it does say qualities of an effective ELL classroom. But if you look at the list, the same criteria is critical for any classroom to run smoothly. Since we work with such a diverse population here at Hope, it's so important to continually emphasize the fact that good instruction for ELLs is good instruction for all. So this doesn't have to be something you only use with ELL teachers, but it's something you can use with all teachers to provide a guide for building an efficacious classroom environment. As you can see, WOW instruction is at the top of the list, and then we do break this down by online and offline instruction. But we don't ever distinguish language and content because both of those should be taught simultaneously. And if you wanted to have a copy of this particular handout, you can just enter that in the chat, and I'm sure we can get that out to you at the end of the presentation. Okay, so moving on, like I said, one of our responsibilities as an ELL specialist are the direct services that we provide to students. Consultation includes some face-to-face contact with mentors and students, as well as communications with mentors and teachers via email, phone, Skype, to provide support for students. Since there are 3 ELL specialists and there are 48 learning centers, we can be spread thin sometimes, but this consultation model allows us to still support as many students and staff as possible. ELL specialists also work very closely with classroom mentors, general education, Title I, and learning specialists in a collaborative problem-solving environment. So oftentimes we're there to assist in creating a curriculum plan for an individual student where maybe something they were doing wasn't working before. Like I said, we have a ton of online and offline tools available to us, so it's all about figuring out what works for each student. Team teaching, exactly what it says. We get the opportunity to teach alongside staff from learning centers as well as other Hope teachers. It might be to model or simply just to support whatever they're doing. Whatever's based, it's all based on that individual teacher's needs. We also provide individual direct instruction through small group and individual pullouts, which you'll see in a video clip in just a moment. This is one of my fellow ELL specialists, Candace Steele. She's working with a non-English proficient 5th grade student on long and short vowels.
Good. All right. So now we're going to put the E at the end. Here we go. So remember, what does the E do? Yes, makes the A say sing. Very good. So here we go. Let's start it. Pain. And we have pain right there. And we have, what is that? It's a window pane. Yep, a window pane. A glass of the window. Good job. All right, let's look at them together. Here we go. Which one is this? Pan. Good. And which one is this? Pain. And which one is the short sound? Pad or pain? The short sound. Which one goes ah? Pan or pain? Pan. Very good. Which one is the long sound? Goes a? Pan or pain? Pain. Good job. All right.
Okay, so as you can see, Candace used first language support in multiple ways. She had her iPad, she was teaching student new vocabulary terms, but she was also using visual supports. I think this is definitely critical when teaching new vocabulary terms for second language learners as well as all students. When they come across a new vocabulary word, it's critical to provide them a reference, something to connect it to. And then on the laptop, if you notice, that was also one of our online curriculums. The benefit of having several curriculums to work with is that the student was able to get instructions in her native language, but the actual skill being taught was still in English. Several of our programs allow us to do directions in native languages as well as other reinforcements in their native language, which is definitely a benefit. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Janet.
Okay, we were going to ask you to do a little activity again in the chat box. So we've talked a little bit about blended learning and how we're providing ELL services both individually and in small group instruction in this format. Please take a few moments to share how you think this might happen in an online format. How could you provide the same kinds of services to students? And this is just to get people started. While you're doing that, I'm going to go to the next slide. Okay. So it's really essential that we monitor the progress of students throughout the year, but then we're also held accountable for measures at the state level to determine if students are actually making gains in their language acquisition as well as their content knowledge. So the big question is our instruction having impact? Results from the state assessments, we have the TCAP, and we have CELA Pro, which we're now doing Access. Are used to calculate progress towards language proficiency. So Colorado applied for and was granted a flexibility waiver for the calculation of AMAOs for Title III and a flexibility waiver for Title I that includes the use of CELA Pro, which is what we used last year, in a growth percentile and for adequate growth. This next year we'll be using the Access as a part of that. The CELA Pro growth describes how a student is progressing towards their English language proficiency compared to his or her peers that have a similar performance history, and the adequate growth reflects the percentile at which a student needs to perform each year in order to attain a higher level of proficiency within a specified period of time. So fortunately, we've been seeing some changes. The growth percentile for the language proficiency just was used this past year in our Unified Improvement Plan and our framework that the state provides us. And I'm happy to say that HOPE was growing at the elementary level, and we met our expectations at the middle and high school level. And then also in terms of the adequate growth percentiles, we're not showing differences between our ELL learners and our other students. So, and of course that may have something to do with the fact that our ELLs are also in the other populations of students as well. So, but we do know that our students are performing much better in their language acquisition and appear in our other bodies of evidence to be making some great strides as a result of the services that are now being provided for them. So I'm going to let Robin talk a little bit about the measures that we use here at Hope to determine if, in fact, our instruction is having an impact.
In addition to the state requirements that Janet spoke about, Hope also monitors student progress through language proficiency changes each year. So whether students are going from NEP to LEP to FEP, which is definitely our hope. DIBBLES is the early reading screener we use for kindergarten through third grade students. Interim benchmark testing in reading and math through Acuity. The use of look-fors, the checklist that was shown earlier by Janet, as well as monthly progress probes, WOW vocabulary assessments, both online and offline. We also, like I said, we use the WIDA can-do descriptors in a variety of ways and definitely to monitor progress. And the WIDA formative assessment tools such as the model.
So we want to go back and reflect on the program innovations that we have here at Hope that we hope that you were able to take some information away from. First off, we believe that community-based learning centers are essential to the model that we have for our English language learners. They provide a direct connection with the community because directors and mentors come from those neighborhoods. They help to establish the types of relationships that oftentimes our teachers are not able to support because of the differences in backgrounds. They also allow a vehicle for increased parent involvement and increased parent communication because the language that is spoken in the centers is typically that of the students that attend those centers. So the directors and mentors are able to communicate with families to let them know where their child's performing at, to get the families more engaged in the types of activities that their students are doing during the school day.
We offer an immersion approach with bilingual support through the use of several online programs as well as offline support in the first language through our Learning Center staff and many of our teachers as well.
Okay, we also again have a number of English language acquisition endorsed educators. Now we've been able to attract more and more teachers with that background. We also have our ELL specialists who are providing that ongoing embedded professional development to all of our centers, but also the embedded piece to our highly impacted centers where they can ensure that the application is happening on a daily basis.
The versatility of our online programs allow us to provide computer-based programming with heavy language support.
We're also able to do individualized and group instruction for students, and we rely heavily on our assorted data to help inform what those groupings should be based on the gaps or the instructional needs of students.
And our students also get the opportunity to participate in authentic project-based learning through the school year. So as Janet referenced before, our older students in grades 6 through 12 participate in the persuasive argument competition. All grade levels have the opportunity to do the mathematical expressions of art show, which we did today, as well as the science symposium, which takes place in April. And our 3rd through 5th grade students participate in the hero narrative.
And finally, one we did not give a lot of attention to, but we partnered with higher education because we want to ensure that our students, given that they have a path created for them throughout their school years, have some way of having access to post-secondary options. So we have partnered with higher education to allow students to attend colleges. In fact, we have several of our community college connections that participate in a number of our learning centers. They also act as judges on some of our competitions, et cetera, so that again, our students have access to and are provided with some foundations that will prepare them to be career and college ready. Okay. So we just want to reiterate again, our vision really is to ensure that all of our students graduate from Hope with the confidence and the skills that they need to pursue their dreams. We appreciate you taking the time this afternoon and tonight in some cases, depending on where you are in the country, to participate on this webinar with us. We hope we were able to give you some information to think about. We ask that if you have any questions, to please share them in the chat, and we will stay connected for a while. We also ask that if you would like anything that we have not shared with you, please feel free to email us. It's on the last slide. And we hope, again, that you had benefit from this. And thank you from all of us here at Hope Online Learning Community.
Thank you, Janet and team. That was a very comprehensive presentation for ELL students, blended online or face-to-face for sure. Let's see, we've got a question here from Pamela that says, will you talk a bit more about the specific online content providers most commonly used for reading and math in elementary grades?
Okay, right now we are using Compass curriculum. We augment in our K through 2 with a program called Dyslexia for reading because it provides a little bit deeper level of access to phonics, phonemic awareness, etc. We, like I said, indicated before, I think for every resource that we have, we know that there are gaps, and we have done some alignment studies with all of these curriculums and found that they do not, provide everything that we need. So that's why we augment with the offline as well. We also have other systems called Reading Plus that we use for students who are at grade 3 or above and who are at least partially proficient in their reading. And that really is focused a lot more on comprehension and fluency for those students. For our individual students who are second language learners or who need a lot more structure around math, we have Help Math that is available for students. And it's available in both Spanish and English. Lexia is also available in Spanish. You saw the Lexia program on the videotape that Candace used. We also have, for our older students who come in, that are second language learners, and some of our younger students, they have access to Rosetta Stone as English learners. So.
Any other questions? Our DIBELs are conducted in English.
And the reason for that is at this particular time, our state, we have a new, what's called the READ Act that's being implemented that's replacing our Readiness Act that we had in place, requires that all students be tested in English. So it's not that we could not do the Spanish, but you have to be able to speak the language and be fully in a dual program, really, to do the DIBELs in Spanish. And we don't have dual program. It's really immersion with bilingual support. Other questions? Okay.
Yeah, so there's a good question. Go ahead,
yeah.
Jan.
Okay, sorry. I was just conferring with all of our people here, and they all have their opinions about this. Not all content providers provide useful data for this. We do find that our supplemental programs such as Reading Plus, Dyslexia, that do provide information, very useful progress monitoring data. In fact, the information allows us to pull the additional resources off of some of those programs to be able to support students in some both online and offline learning. It can redirect them. So that's very helpful. I think As far as progress monitoring, I think our balanced assessment system is pretty rich because the DIBELs we can progress monitor with. We use our progress probes if they're really done correctly within the centers. It's student work that they sit down and they go through a rubric that really indicates what would a student look like if they didn't have any of these skills in place, and what does it look like when they are fully proficient in that particular areas. So those are very beneficial, and the benchmarks are helpful in understanding whether students are actually making gains or not. I think we're really into formative assessment here. I think we understand the need for it. I think it's not often done with the fidelity, but at least it's a start in the centers to really be able to get them to understand that it's not about what's being taught, it's about what's being learned. And we really try and emphasize that with everybody. That really was a good question, though, about the data generated by the content providers. So I think one of the issues that we have is that oftentimes the quizzes and assessments that are within the systems, again, are not aligned with the cognitive complexity and the depth of knowledge that are required within the standards and that you'll see evident within the state testing systems. So, we know that they're just not sufficient to really indicate whether the student has integrated that knowledge very well or not.
Well, thanks again to all the people from Hope Online Learning Academy. You certainly increased all of our knowledge and how to better serve. Whoops, there's one more question. Let's see. Do you want to look at that one? And again, it's the end of the hour, but if you guys want to take a minute to answer that, and if there's other questions, I'm sure that they'll stick around. Let's see. How do you determine when a student has a learning difference, e.g. dyslexia?
Yeah. We have a fairly strong, in most centers, RTI process. The team of special education specialists that we have that work with us are assigned, again, to every learning center. So our general ed teachers, our title reading teachers, our ELL specialists, and our special ed teachers all collaborate together to look at the data that we provide for each benchmark period, a set of student data so that they can determine students who continue to struggle, and we provide a history of that data so they can determine if students in fact are making gains or not. So those students that continue to struggle in terms of their data, we go through the RTI process, so we continue to implement a number of different interventions, both online and offline. And then when we see that students are not making gains, we bring in the learning specialists. So the learning specialists may do some additional assessments prior to even looking at special education referral. So that's the process that we go to. So once we have that hands-on look by the learning specialist, they can oftentimes tell if a student has an issue. Although truthfully, many of our teachers have some type of a special ed background or ELL background, so a number of people have a vast body of knowledge, so they know beforehand even that a student may be struggling and may need something more than just what we can provide them through the general education services. Because we do have so many ELL students also, that is really a big area that we have to rule out. So we do bring in our ELL specialists, and this is where it's really good because they have had all the training in the formative assessments, so that's been very helpful.
I want to thank everybody again for attending and for this outstanding presentation. You can see Janet and Robin's email addresses there, so feel free to email them. Know that I will send out the link to the presentation and the PowerPoint and the recording tomorrow, so you'll have all of that to share with other people as well. Thanks again, everybody, and have a great evening.